Hi, welcome to Urban Insights. I'm Jayashree Kurup. I have with me Mr. Arvind Nanda. He's the co-founder and managing director of Interarch Building Products Ltd. Mr. Nanda, thank you so much for joining us. Let's first talk about the prefabricated steel structures. Whom do you cater to? Which are the sectors that you cater to?
Thank you for having me on the show. Well, we call ourselves pre-engineered buildings. To differentiate between fabricated, normally the term prefabricated means that they are already fabricated sections
Yeah,
from which you can make the building.
right.
But we are totally customized. We
Okay,
do not have any ready-made sections as such to put in a building. We engineer the building as per your requirement and then make the whole building in-house
yeah,
as required. So that's why we call ourselves pre-engineered building.
right.
See, pre-engineered building is another way of making a steel building. So
Yeah,
steel buildings have always been very popular for factories, for warehousing, even for other buildings like high-rise. Empire State Building was made in steel in 1912. So steel is a very old method of building
right.
because steel is very flexible, very fast, and prone to a lot of off-site working. You don't have to do everything on the site. So it's always been very popular.
Right.
It's very structurally very strong compared to any other building material. So pre-engineered buildings have really changed the way of doing a steel building. So
Right.
we cater to every sector. There is no industry today in India who would not have used pre-engineered buildings for their manufacturing plants or their warehouses. Whether you want to name Amazon, Flipkart, Asian Paints, Micron Semiconductor, Exide Lithium Battery, Tata Semiconductor Plant, car plant. There is no car plant in India which has not been done in a pre-engineered building. Most of them done by us.
Right.
So we are really industry agnostic. To us, it doesn't matter what is your industry. We can engineer the building and we can produce it and erect it for you. We are also pretty much building agnostic. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter to us what kind of building do you have. A high-rise building, a very wide building, a very heavy structure requirement building. So we can do anything. So we are pretty much building agnostic as well as industry agnostic. We can do anything. As Interarch, we can. Of course, every pre-engineered building has to make itself able to do that
Mm-hmm.
because right from engineering design to execution of putting up the building at site is done by one company. So
Okay.
that company must have all these skills
Yeah.
to design engineer your factory, whether it's an automobile plant or a semiconductor plant, manufacture it in-house. Every part of that building is manufactured by us in-house. We buy nothing ready-made, no
Right.
ready-made section, and then we take it to site and do a nut and bolt assembly. So
Okay.
that skill is required, but as Interarch, we are pretty much industry agnostic as well as.
So does this mean that all you are an end-to-end solutions provider, right?
Yes.
How busy is the space? How crowded is the space in India? Because steel structures have not been the norm. We had a very different kind of building process, and increasingly there is a call to go for pre-engineered structures, for steel structures, because it is more resilient to earthquakes, wind, climate change, and so on. So just help me understand how are you placed vis-a-vis your competitors in the Indian market?
You see, steel buildings and more so steel pre-engineered buildings come into play when the economy or the country is expanding very fast.
Okay.
So actually, they were invented by the Americans after the Second World War.
Right.
They wanted to build massive factories very fast, very few manpower. Manpower was very low after the Second World War. Europe had to be built, Japan, Asia. So they invented this method, which everything is done off-site. And the main advantage of pre-engineered steel building is speed and quality. So as speed and quality is required in any economy, steel buildings and more so pre-engineered steel buildings come into play. So India reached this stage in early 2000s, 2003, 4. There was a big manufacturing boom in India. When companies like Hyundai and all these car companies came in, and a lot of these foreign companies which exist today, Indian companies expanded. So that was the time when pre-engineered steel buildings came into really their play,
Right.
because everybody wanted a factory like yesterday.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to produce something. So their pre-engineered steel buildings are very, very critical.
Yeah.
And so till 2008-9, there was a big boom. Then 10 years, it was a very slow economy, not many people building. So it slowed down again. But from 2017-18, we are seeing again a major boom in India in terms of high quality buildings, large projects, foreign companies coming in, a lot of Indian companies, and they all want to offload the building part to one company. They don't want to get involved in project management and buying the steel and buying the materials and then trying to put up the building themselves. So they have just said, okay, let me offload it to a specialist. So pre-engineered building space is occupied by people like us who are specialists.
Right.
So that is how it has become very common and very popular in India because of the very fast growth also.
The Indian conditions are changing. Global conditions are changing very fast. Climate change is a reality we have to contend with, right? And also pollution is a big problem. So does pre-engineered buildings preclude both these? How does it respond to climate change, intense precipitation, intense wind flows, and so on? And the second thing is, does it also reduce the carbon footprint of the building?
See, steel building, pre-engineered building, and steel building both have one major advantage that they are fully reusable. There is no actually wasted scrap. Like if you build a cement and concrete building or a road or anything, you have to throw the malba somewhere. You have to find a site to throw that malba. What do you do with it? But steel is fully reutilizable.
Right.
If I want to destroy a steel building to make something new, I can actually sell the scrap and the steel companies will use that scrap to make steel again.
Right.
So that is one major part of steel, that there is no scrap to be thrown away or disposed of. And that is a major problem today in that sense. Then they are also pretty much green building because these can be insulated. They can be taken, the wind transformation. How many times do you want the wind to air to come into the factory? What temperature do you want to maintain inside? And what kind of leads rating? There's these leads rating given. They are all possible in a steel building.
Okay.
So earthquake zone, cyclone zone, they are all taken into consideration when we do a pre-engineered building. So in that sense, it is a very much of a green building. Has no leftover scrap. If the building has to be disposed of in any sense, it can even be moved. If you want the same building going somewhere else, you can actually unscrew it and take it somewhere else. And because it takes care of your temperature inside, your reflection of the sunlight to take less heat intake, your earthquake zone. So it is very much a green building, and climate effect. They are all, most of our buildings today have you are able to put solar panels on them. So most of the factories are running on solar power that we are doing. So in that sense, I would say for the present world, it is the most ideal kind of structures that you can put up. And because all the work is off-site, on the site, no work happens. So no wastage, no scrap, no welding. All this does not happen at site. So off-site work is also a big factor in improving the climate. What global warming, as we call it.
Yeah.
So steel buildings are ideal for it. In fact, they are the only building which can be classified as a LEED building, LEED green building.
How does the digitization of the construction industry help? I mean, does it have any impact at all? You have digital twinning today, BIM is there. There are so many technologies that are being commonly adopted and adapted in the Indian context. Does that help you as well?
See, in the steel building, pre-engineered steel building, everything has to be designed by us. So we use very advanced technologies, 3D technology, Tekla and Start kind of software, which give the client a complete 3D picture of the plant as we are going to make it.
Right.
So he can superimpose electrical, machineries, is plumbing, how the whole factory is going to get made in the 3D sort of structure that we give him.
Right.
So we have to use very advanced technologies because we have to design and make that building in the most economical and speedy way that it can be done. So for us, technologies are very critical, and these 3D technologies which help in adapting other parts of the building also by the customer are a very common feature of pre-engineered buildings.
Okay.
We are always far ahead in adopting these new technologies, like Start, BIM, twinning. These are all pretty standard for us now as such.
And after COVID, we have seen that a building is not just a building. You're talking about the health of the occupants. You're talking about how safe it is, fire safety, earthquake safety, and so on. So, tell us a little more about the safety features as well as how it conforms to the National Building Code. And if you think, there's a new version of National Building Code coming up in 2025. They've just announced the details. So, how does that help you as well?
See, when we design the building, we design it according to its location, the number of people who will be working on it, and what kind of temperatures does the client want to maintain there. So it is not the same building whether it is in the Rajasthan desert or it's in the hills of Darjeeling or some area. It is designed for that area. So not only do we take things like cyclone, if it's in the seaside, earthquake zones, wind zones, rainwater zone, and temperature also. So it has to be very comfortable in a natural way, not by air conditioning inside, but in a natural way. How do we maintain those temperature and the air changes? So that it's a very comfortable environment for human beings to work in. And because it is designed for each location separately, and even the process, if the process is something which will generate heat or smoke, then how do we take it out is also a part of the building process. So in that sense, they are completely designed to make the most comfortable level without any artificial means inside. Natural lighting, so that at least during daytime when there is natural lighting, the factory doesn't need any lights or doesn't need any electricity. So these are all, that's the standard format. We take that into when we do a pre-engineered building for a client. He just tells us this is the location. Building codes also we have to follow. We know the building codes applicable to those buildings, and we have to apply those building code. Of course, the consultant normally will have a consultant, client will normally have a consultant, or will ask us to get it approved by IIT or some organization like that, that we are following all the codes. But those are the standard. We have to follow the building codes. And the newer codes will actually be more applicable for pre-engineered building. But the older codes were not really applicable because they were made many years ago when pre-engineered buildings were not a part of the Indian landscape. Right. So I think the newer ones are going to help us to get a better. Right now, most of them have to be designed by the American codes because there is no Indian code for a steel pre-engineered building. So it will help us because now they'll have Indian codes. But we have to follow all those and make sure that according to the location, a seismic zone, cyclone, everything has to be taken into consideration when we design that building.
Let's talk about your market performance. You predicted a 10% growth. You reached about 12.5%. You're predicting a 18.5% growth. So what has triggered this sudden growth in the market, and how do you see it going? And I think one of the statements you made was that your problem is with capacity and not with business. So talk a little bit about that.
You see, pre-engineered building, like I said, about 7-8 years ago, the economy started picking up and a lot of industry started happening again. People who are not building. So one was there was an economic pickup. Indian companies were building more, foreign companies were coming in. New kind of industries was invited to India, like semiconductor, data centers, lithium battery. See, these were not really there in India, and these require very large plants. So one is that there was an economic growth. The government did a lot of serious efforts to invite these companies with the PLI scheme, with Make in India, Manufacture in India, whether it's the Apple telephones, all these things were proactively involved in the government to move them to India. So number one was the growth in that. So but that can benefit everybody. Right. The second thing which we think is very important is that we geared up our company in the last 10 years to be able to deal with all these very large projects, very complex building, and very complex clients. Because when we deal with these clients like Micron or Foxconn or Amazon or Toyota, they are like world-class companies. They are used to dealing with the best in the world. So they are not going to deal with you if you are not world-class equal to them. They will import it. You see, there is no problem in importing it. There's a cost, but they will not compromise. So what we did was over the last 8-10 years, we spent a lot of time, money, and effort building Interarch as a world-class company. to be able to deal with these world-class companies as an equal partner. Whether our engineering wing, whether our factories, whether our scheduling, whether our commitments, that we said, look, Interarch, whatever we say, we will do. And engineering these buildings is not an easy task. So getting into advanced softwares, getting into very highly trained people, we picked up good people from Middle East, from India. My other partner, Gautam Suri, he is an IIT engineer. So he himself has a lot of contribution to make in this. So we had to make Interarch capable of handling this market. Otherwise, they would have gone either to some other pre-engineered building, or they would have gone to steel structure manufacturing traditional way,
Right.
or they would have imported. So I think both these things happened. But I would say for Interarch, more important is how we built up our company to be able to deal with these clients as equals. That is the most important part for us.
And you have now bought fresh land in Andhra Pradesh. You're growing your project, right? Nellore, I think, right? So how soon will that project take off, and how will that augment the capacity that you're looking for?
See, we are trying to augment our capacity as fast as possible, seeing the situation. But unfortunately or fortunately, pre-engineered building is a four-legged animal. One of the legs is the factory.
Right.
One leg is the sales team, which has to be very highly qualified because they are the first interface with the customer.
Right.
If the sales team does not give a good impression to the client, he will not go any further, because this is not a price issue.
Yeah.
This business is not a L1 kind of a business. It is who do they feel is most capable of doing this job. Second is our design engineering, which is like the brain of pre-engineered building. If my people cannot understand the requirement of the building or come up with the best solution, then I could be outbid, because the solution is provided by me. The customer doesn't tell me that use 1,000 tons of steel. Customer tells me make my building. So if I can make it in 900 and my competitor makes it in 1,000, I am going to get the order. Or it could be vice versa and I would lose it.
Right. Right.
Fourth wing is the project management, which actually puts up this whole building in the site.
Mm-hmm.
All these four legs must move together.
Right.
Equally strong and very well coordinated. So for us, while factories are important and the most visible part that everybody looks at, so naturally we have to get prepared, because they are also the longer lead time thing. Getting land, putting a factory can take 1 to 1.5 to 2 years sometimes. So we have bought the land. Now we have started our Andhra Pradesh part 1, which is already now done, is going into production this month fully. The new land which we bought, we are going to start sometime in August this year and get it into production by next June or July. And then we are also planning to start in Gujarat to augment our capacity, because we feel that we have also augmented our capacity in terms of sales and engineering and project management also. And we are ready to take more orders, because we can't just take more orders because we have a factory.
Yeah.
We have to do the other three legs also. So pre-engineered building is a little complex, more complex than just a factory-made product. But that is only 1/4 our problem. 3/4 is a people problem.
Right.
So
And
that is what we are trying to build up.
are people difficult to find? Do you have a manpower challenge?
You see, manpower challenge everybody has. We all want the best, but we are trying to solve it in 2, 3 different ways, rather than the traditional way of trying to hire the people available. One is, of course, give a lot of training and inputs to our present people.
Right.
It is always very best way is to make your present people more productive. Right. By giving them better technology, by training them better, giving them more responsibility. A lot of people are ready for more responsibility, the company don't give them. So number 2 is we are using a lot of new technology, new software, new computer systems, so that the same people can also become more productive. Right? The third thing we are doing is that we are also now taking people at a graduate and trainee engineer level. Because we feel that if we start them off in the beginning with us, number one, their training will be based on our requirements, and they will see a path going forward, because most of our senior people today have grown with us from the very bottom. They started at very low levels and today they are running the company. So we are the kind of company which will give a chance to people to keep growing. So we are adopting 3-4 different methods to do it. And of course, if we get some good people in the market, but we have to be very careful that those people match our culture also, because we don't want people who are just think that they're trying to sell steel or just trying to fool the customer, which a lot of companies teach them to. We are a very different kind of company in that sense. So it is very critical for us that the culture also matches of that person. So we find that growing people in house uh, gets them that culture, puts it into their DNA also, and also gives us a long term loyalty.
Do you
Because money wise, anybody can take anybody. You
Right.
can pay, right? So this loyalty is what comes when you help people grow.
Do you also engage with the engineering colleges so that you can take them at the student level as well?
Yeah, we have just taken a whole lot of 40 people from engineering colleges.
Okay.
So they are, we are calling graduate or postgraduate engineering trainees.
Okay.
So they will start with us because our whole and the good thing about pre-engineered building company is because of these four legs: sales, engineering, production, and project management. These engineers can actually choose the field they want to be in one company.
Right.
Otherwise, if you join L&T, you will only do projects. If you join a manufacturing company, you'll only do manufacturing.
Right. Right.
And sometimes you don't know as a graduate engineer what you want to do.
Right.
So we feel that we will give them overall training, then let them decide which area they want to move to. And tomorrow, even if they feel that, oh, I've joined the wrong area, I'm not really a sales guy, inside the company, he will get opportunity to change. So that is how we are doing it.
And with the increasing use of pre-engineered buildings, do you think this will help India reach its carbon goals globally?
Yes, of course. I think the more work which is done off-site, number one, environmental conditions. Why do they stop in the NCR region? Why do they stop doing high pollution areas, normal construction?
Yeah.
Because that's causing a lot of problems in the environment. But ours is all done at site in the factory,
Mhm.
and very controlled conditions. Everything, whether it's a waste, water, whether it's a smoke, everything we have to treat.
Right.
So the more things which move offset, and we are finding that more and more things, buildings at least, are moving to pre-engineered. You will even see nowadays metro railway lines, girders, bridges, elevated roads, all coming up in steel because it's faster. And certainly, I think you will have to move away more and more from the traditional method of construction.
Right.
Because not only will it cause environmental problem, but it's also causing a labor issue. When I need 300 people at site, that causes its own problems, whether it is safety, whether it is health, whether it is the environmental issues so many people at one point cause. And I think most of the countries in the world have solved the problem like this.
Mm.
Whether it's their housing, whether it is their multi-storied buildings, hospitals, stadiums, everything is being done in steel or prefabricated. Even concrete is moving to prefabricated. You get it ready and then shift it to site.
And
So that is-
do you see the developers accepting this as well? There's a large, about 75% of the construction in our country today is residential, right? In all geographies. Is that also moving towards pre-engineered
See,
building?
I think residential will be, to my mind, the last.
Okay.
Because residential right now in India has a different set of priorities.
Yeah.
They get the land, they take 50-60% of the money from you, and then they build slowly.
Right.
A residential complex can take 5-6 years as a norm.
Yeah.
But factories and commercial buildings cannot do that.
Right.
So, but it will happen. It will happen for other reasons.
Yeah.
Right now, there is labor available. People have the advantage of getting money from the sort of resident. But 2-3 people will start it, and then there will be a sort of race to give the building first. So if you are getting a building in 3 years, your apartment, and I'm giving it in 6, so probably you will go for that builder.
Right.
But that happens. But residential also, see, most of the pre-engineered building companies currently are not catering to the residential sector. It's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
It's not the demand from the residential, but it's also, are we ready to supply to them?
Yeah.
Today, I feel pre-engineered building companies are so busy catering to the industrial and commercial and manufacturing industry,
Mhm.
which is very fast, which has accepted it, and I mean, they understand pre-engineered building. So naturally, we all want to go to the easiest part. But yes, I think one day we'll all have to move there as well.
And is there a cost differential between traditional and pre-engineered?
What happens in the high-rise buildings, if you build it with only steel, you have to fire treat it, which is not the case in manufacturing industries or low-rise building. Right now, fire treatment of steel is very expensive, whereas concrete is considered fire treated. So therefore, most people shy away from this thing for two reasons. One is, of course, most of the developers themselves are builders,
Right.
and they already have the equipment and the people for it. But this is also adding to the cost. But it adds, I would say 20% to the structure cost. But the structure is only 25% of the building cost.
Hmm.
So it's not that much. So what a lot of people are doing now, even in commercial building, is doing a hybrid. You have steel structure encased with cement, concrete. So it gives you strength of both and gives you the fire coating. So that is the first stage, what we call composite structures. So that is happening now. Pure steel is a lot is happening in under 4 floors. Over 4 floors in India, it's considered high rise. In commercial and residential, industrial, there is no requirement as such. So I think it will happen, but I think it will take a little longer, and new methods will have to be built so that they can be built faster and commercially more viable. And then I think it will move on.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Nanda. Pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.